Maroof Danishwar or Musannifa, Professor Dr. Mary Lall. Welcome to the program, Dr. Mary Lall. My first question is regarding American role in resolution of Kashmir conflict between Pakistan and India. Recently, there is a statement from American Army Chief, he is Admiral Mike Mullen, that there is need to detentionize Kashmir so that Pakistan can concentrate more on its western border to crush the militancy. How do you think that the role of America in resolution of Kashmir issue, and what's its historical perspective?
I think there's actually no role for the United States to play whatsoever because India will not allow it. Now, this particular statement will have probably gone down very badly in India. The way it's reported in the Pakistani press is linking the current withdrawal of troops in Kashmir to this statement is actually probably not the way that India would see it at all. It's just the press which is making a linkage between two things which are not actually related to each other. The fact is India has been very clear historically and to this date that it will not accept any international involvement, any foreign power getting involved in the resolution of Kashmir. And whilst Pakistan would like to see the United States play a role, and in the old days Pakistan also wanted the United Nations to play a role, this is something which will be vetoed from India. So I don't really see that this is going to go anywhere.
Well, you're very right in this. But on the other hand, if we see the history, whenever there is tension between Pakistan and India, or whenever there is anything serious happening between Pakistan and India conflict, it's always India who goes to United Nations or who knock at the door of United States. So when the things are okay for India, why it's reluctant not to invite any third-party mediation or reconciliation effort. So why India is adopting this sort of role?
Actually, I would disagree with your analysis of things. I think in the past we'll find historically that India and Pakistan have both gone running, not so much to the UN but to the United States when things have become hot. But in this particular case, what you're actually referring to is the troop withdrawal. This is something which is in the Pakistani press today. Interestingly enough, it's not very much present in the Indian press. I checked the Indian papers this morning online, and apart from the reports which were 2 or 3 days old where the chief of the Hurriyat was very badly injured, I think fighting for his life, there is hardly any mention of Kashmir in the Indian press today at all. So in the Pakistani press you hear a lot about the troop withdrawal. Now this is something which India defends or explains by saying that 2009 has actually been a year where there has been very little violence comparatively in Kashmir. The other thing you have to remember is that we've just had an election in India, and during this election, Kashmir remained peaceful. In fact, there was a large participation of Kashmiri people, not of all sections of Kashmiri people, but of many sections of Kashmiri people, which took part. And so the Indian government feels a little more confident with regard to what is going on in Kashmir, and the troop withdrawal is directly linked to that. It's not linked to the Americans, it's not linked to Pakistan.
Okay. In the last visit of Dr. Manmohan Singh to Washington, there were some reports that behind the scenes, President Obama has addressed the issue, and the Kashmir issue was discussed behind the doors, though it was not explicitly told to the media. Do you think that in the days to come, India will change its attitude towards Pakistan, and will it go towards the solution of Kashmir conflict?
I mean, can't tell you if what was discussed in Washington. As you said very correctly, this is behind closed doors. None of us will ever have a confirmation if it was not discussed, and if it was discussed, how it was discussed. But I hope that India will change its current attitude towards Pakistan and resume talks. I think you and I have had this discussion a number of times where I say very clearly that there is no future unless there are talks, and both countries are linked with each other. Neither country can set sail for another part of the world. So talks are absolutely essential, and I do hope that once talks resume, I suspect that Kashmir will be not the first thing on the agenda, but it will be part of the agenda from the Indian perspective. And yes, India should resume talks, because actually both India and Pakistan are subject to extremist violence, and actually it would help if they both work together against it, as opposed to keeping the tensions high between each other.
Okay. From Pakistani perspective, if you might have looked at Pakistani press in the recent days, Pakistan is in grip of violence and suicide attacks. Now the Pakistani government is all out to blame India, that India is all out to destabilize Pakistan, and it has its role in some of the suicide attacks and Balochistan insurgency. What's your opinion about it?
A lot of people believe that India is involved in this. I absolutely actually happen to disagree with this assessment, because it's not in India's interest to have a destabilized Pakistan at its borders. And it's certainly not in India's interest to have a strengthening of its Islamic militancy in any shape or form anywhere near its borders. So I actually happen to disagree with that. I also understand from a speech which was given by General Abbas, who is the spokesman of the Pakistani army here at Lums, where I'm based, that yes, there is a lot of suspicion with regard to India, but there isn't actually enough evidence to bring it to the Indian government and to say steady and hard fastly that India is involved in the Islamic insurgency in South Waziristan or in any of the bombings which have been taking place. This is a different matter from what is going on in Balochistan. Balochistan was not discussed at this particular talk of his, but if there is not sufficient evidence to bring it to the Indian government, then obviously until the case is proven, I choose to remain skeptical. And I'm not the only one. If you read various articles in the paper today, in Dawn, for example, Tariq Rahman was very clear also on the fact is that ultimately speaking, just pointing fingers across is not going to help solve the problem. Pakistan has to deal with this problem. It's on its soil, and it's become a Pakistani problem, no matter who is financing it and no matter who is sponsoring this.
My question is that General Karl Eikenberry in Kabul, who is ambassador of United States in Kabul, he said security relationship between Pakistan and India has its own consequences in Afghanistan. Now this is published in Indian media as well. So my question is that when America needs Pakistan in the various phases of its history, then such statements come from America. When America doesn't need Pakistan, they are silent, they are mute on Kashmir issue. So you think, do you agree with this, or you think that this time America seriously means business and America wants to resolve the Kashmir dispute between Pakistan and India?
No, I don't think they mean business at all. I mean, this is Pakistan has been through this so many times. The United States and the relationships between the United States and Pakistan is a very volatile one. Pakistan will have a good relationship when it's useful to the United States, and when it's no longer needed, then I don't see that pattern changing in any way. And given the fact that the United States has now a much better relationship with India than it has had in the past 60 years, I think it would be foolhardy to believe that the United States is going to take Pakistan's side in anything. If anything happens at all, it's going to remain neutral.
My last question is that Pakistan security establishment, it is linking Kashmir issue resolution with the support to United States in Afghanistan. Do you think this strategy will work for Pakistan?
No, I don't think it will work. I think that the United States is very clear what its involvement with Pakistan is, and that is limited to the western border. And I don't think that the United States will support Pakistan in any way with regard to what goes on with India. I think the United States will be told by India to try and remain neutral, and there might be statements, but I wouldn't think that it will go anywhere beyond statements. And there